Next, we talk with Republican candidate for Illinois Attorney-General Paul Schimpf. We learn how he was once a part of the prosecution of Saddam Hussein, and, if elected, how this former Marine will approach the job of Attorney General. This runs about 15 minutes.
Paul Schimpf, Republican candidate for Illinois Attorney General. Thanks for joining us on the Illinois Channel.
Oh, thanks for having me here, Terry.
We are standing here in September of 2013. Of course, the election is over a year away, but a lot of people haven't focused, I think, on some of the candidates. So let's just get a little bit of your background. Tell us what part of Illinois you're from, and what have you been doing for the last your career?
Sure. I'm from Waterloo, Illinois, which is down in Monroe County, close to St. Louis, Missouri. And I actually just retired from the Marine Corps on June 1st. So I've only been out for a few months now, and since I retired, I had to move the family back to Illinois. But what I'm doing right now is I'm running for Attorney General of Illinois because our state desperately needs an Attorney General who is not beholden to the insiders and special interest groups in either party. I think my legal qualifications for the Marine Corps give me the requisite qualifications that I can serve this state and do what needs to be done as far as fighting corruption and providing the people of Illinois with an independent Attorney General.
Okay, so let's go a little bit into that background. A Marine attorney, we were talking off camera, and actually you had some especially interesting, I think, experience dealing with, in Iraq, dealing with the arrest of Saddam Hussein. Just give us briefly a bit of that background.
Well, sure. Like you said, one of the things about being a Marine is you get to go to neat vacation spots like Iraq or Afghanistan. And when I went over to Iraq, I was actually sent to the Regime Crimes Liaison Office, which was the government agency that was supporting the Iraqi trial of Saddam Hussein. And I wound up being the lead American attorney advisor to the Iraqi prosecutors in that case. So I was the one that was mentoring the Iraqi prosecutors and talking strategy with them about how they needed to go about prosecuting Saddam Hussein in a manner that would satisfy international standards of due process.
And not to spend, this is a fascinating chapter, and I know we want to talk about your candidacy, but let's just follow up a little bit on that. Did you have a chance to depose Saddam Hussein?
Well, I would be in the same room as Saddam on a couple occasions, and I would coach the Iraqi prosecutors on what evidence they needed to put in. And one of the things that I was fortunate to be able to do in the trial was I worked with them on presenting their evidence, planning how they were going to do it, and it was that presentation of evidence that actually caused Saddam to stand up and say, look, so what? I did all of this stuff. He basically admitted that he had done everything he was accused of. And at that point, it didn't really matter, what you thought of the proceedings. Saddam had admitted he was guilty, and that trial had satisfied international standards of due process. One of the things that I joke about on the campaign trail with people is, at one point in the trial, I was laughing at something Saddam had said, and Saddam actually stood up, turned around and gestured and pointed at me and said, the Lion of Baghdad does not care about a monkey chattering in a tree. And of course the media picked up on that quote, and now what I tell people is when they say, look, you're not ready for the rough and tumble of Illinois politics, I say, well, look, show me one other Illinois candidate that's been called a monkey in the pages of the New York Times, by a genocidal dictator at that.
Let's go a little bit back in the campaign. So you spent your career. What is it as Attorney General that you would want to achieve, or what made you decide that you wanted to run to begin with?
Well, the reason I want to run is because the stakes are just too high at this point in our history not to have an Attorney General who is truly independent. Our current Attorney General has done some good things. I'm willing to stipulate that she has done good work for sexual assault victims, veterans. She's done some good consumer work. However, she doesn't have the necessary independent perspective where she can fight corruption, where she can look out for the rights of the citizens of Illinois. Now, there are some big issues coming down the pike right now. Obamacare, whether you support it or are against it, if you're intellectually honest, you'll know that Obamacare is a threat to your medical privacy, your financial privacy, and also your religious liberty. We need an Attorney General who's independent that can assess whether or not Obamacare is going to violate the rights of Illinois citizens. Same thing with the pensions. If I had a solution to the pension crisis, I'd be running for governor instead of Attorney General. But what we need an honest broker. A pension is a promise. It is a contract, and we need somebody that's going to be an honest broker in the pension debate. It's a huge Attorney General equity because whatever solution we come up with for the pension crisis is something that has to comply with the Illinois Constitution. You know, and as an independent outsider Attorney General, I will be able to give people the requisite independent review so that they can have confidence that whatever solution we come up with is going to satisfy the Illinois Constitution, and it is going to be honest and true to the pension holders of Illinois.
How do you view the job? Would you view it as being a prosecutor or as a legal consultant to state government?
I view it as an independent officer who is going to look out for the rights of Illinois citizens. I think that we need an independent Attorney General who is going to stand up and be able to emphasize the protection of our freedoms as Illinois citizens. We also need an Attorney General who's going to be able to reprioritize anti-corruption efforts. Now, our current Attorney General just doesn't have the independent perspective to be able to assess corruption. And what I mean by that is, you know, you take an independent fact. One of the first things you learn as a litigator is that it's our subconscious biases and it's our emotions that actually control how we perceive facts. So if you take a fact like, say, you know, the U.S. economy created, you know, whatever it was this past month, 60,000 jobs. If you tell that to a Democrat, they're going to be, okay, that's good, that's, you know, another month of job creation. You tell that to a Republican, they're going to say, well, that's not enough, it should be 600,000 in a recovery. Well, the same thing goes with corruption. You know, you have somebody that's, you know, you can have one person's educational grant, maybe another person's bribe. It just depends on what your perspective is. You know, it's not because you're dishonest or you're corrupt, it's just you don't have the requisite independence to assess corruption unless you're a political outsider.
You know, you're obviously brand new, so I don't know to what extent you've had a chance to even have any campaign stops as yet. I mean, brand new as a candidate, I should say. Have you had a chance to talk to any of the voters around the state as yet? And if so, what kind of feedback are you getting as far as what are they interested in vis-a-vis the Office of Attorney General?
Well, I've been doing campaign events for about 2 months now. We got the campaign really up and running mid-July and end of July. I'm going to formally announce on September 26th, but the reaction from the voters is enormously positive. The voters of Illinois want somebody who's an outsider. They recognize that our political system is broke. It's actually a plus with the voters when I tell them, look, I'm not recruited by the Illinois Republican Party. I'm running because we desperately need somebody who can provide a different perspective. We need, you know, our current system that we have, you know, with our two political parties, they're just not getting the job done. Both of them are, you know, have failed the state of Illinois. We need somebody that is willing to bring people together, and I think that's one of the great things that having a military background gives me. Because in the military, you work with people from all strata of society, all perspectives, Republicans and Democrats. It's all about coming together and getting the job done. You know, our political system in Illinois is broken right now. The voters are ready for something different. I certainly am a different kind of candidate, and I'm going to give them something different.
When we look at Illinois, obviously it's dominated by Chicago because 2/3 of the population is in the Chicago metropolitan area. A lot of people in that, certainly in Cook County, have probably never voted Republican in their life. What would you do to win enough Democratic votes, as Dan Rutherford has said, you know, an Illinois candidate to be elected statewide, I think he was saying has to get something like 20% of the Cook County vote. What would you do to attract those people, and what message would you have for those who have never voted Republican?
Well, I'm already actually attracting Democrats. My campaign manager is a Democrat. My communications director is fiercely independent. You know, if you're in the Republican Party and you're an optimist, you know, you say that I've got crossover appeal. If you're a pessimist, you say I'm a rhino. But, you know, I think my political orthodoxy doesn't fit neatly within either political party. I am a small government conservative. I believe in limited government, individual freedom, religious liberty, and respect for life. So I'm running as a Republican, but at the same time, I think people want somebody that is independent. A lot of people will vote for the person, not for the party, and I think they understand that I'm going to be somebody that's loyal to the state of Illinois and to them, not to the Republican Party.
As we're standing here, it's going to start to rain in a little bit, so I want to just get a couple of brief answers. On something like gun control, how would you have approached that issue? The Attorney General seemed to drag her feet a little bit and almost kind of grudgingly go along only because a federal court ordered it. What were your thoughts as far as the implementation of concealed carry? And let's just take that.
Well, I supported concealed carry with some common sense restrictions. If Governor Quinn's mandatory veto had just said let's have alcohol and guns not mix, if it had just been that issue, I could have actually supported that mandatory veto. When I was an infantry officer, I always made my guys put the weapons away before we cracked them open. It just, that to me seemed common sense. But Governor Quinn's veto, you know, did much more than that. It gutted the entire law, and then unfortunately, you know, he ended up doing a little bit of demagoguery. One of the very disappointing things about his statement was he talked about Sandy Hook. Concealed carry has absolutely nothing to do with the Sandy Hook tragedy, but yet that's what Governor Quinn was talking about. So I do support concealed carry. I wouldn't have tried to slow roll it like our current Attorney General did on that issue.
We'll leave it there as the rain begins to fall. Paul Schimpf, thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Let me just say one last thing. When I hung up my uniform after 24 years in the Marine Corps, that didn't change who I am. I believe you have an obligation to serve your country, your state, and your community. My time in the Marines is done, but I want to continue serving the state of Illinois, so that's why I'm actually running, Terry.
Right. Thanks again.
Thanks.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.